Hello everyone, so welcome back. Today I wanted to talk about the specific colors I like to use when it comes to light and shadow on a person's face. So this piece is actually a study of a woman that's almost emerging from the bush, and it also is a study of a hummingbird, which is my first time to make a hummingbird actually. I would love to talk about light and shadow. Now, light and shadow is what makes our drawing pop up, especially if we wanted to make it look more surreal. If you're not aiming for an animated or an animation or an anime style of drawing, light and shadow would be your best friend. So you have to figure out where is your light source. From this piece, as you could see, the left side is where most of the face is still hidden from the bush, where one leaf is still covering part of the eye and part of the cheek. So what I did was I actually made that area of the skin more darker. However, I started off with the base skin, which is always peach, since is a blonde woman, so technically she has a fairer skin. But just to base it all off, I started off with a peach, and then on the left side where there is the shadow, that's where I immediately put a darker brown tone. It's actually a burnt umber tone. But on the left side, I used a sienna as a lightning or a shadow. Now, as you could see, as I walk gradually through the shadow, I uses a more darker and more less diluted burnt umber, which is almost similar to the color of, well, exactly the similar color as her shadow for the eyebrows, which is normally darker. But I don't really pull it off all the way to the right side, because the right side is where the light is hitting. And from that point of view, or from that perspective, that's how we would actually create that light and shadow. Now you have to make sure that if you're using a really obvious shadow and lightning, you have to understand that on the chin part where the light actually blends with the shadow, you have to use wet and dry technique, because you wanted to have that crisp line that draws the shadow from the right side of the face. Because if you use wet technique, they would bleed together and it would create that watermark effect, which is not really good. Now on the hummingbird, um, I will definitely talk about that on the details, but this is just a study, so it's not as detailed, although I tried it to make it really detailed. But I would really want to cover it again with another video once I really get a hold of it. For now, let's talk about the hair. For the hair, it's the same rule. This is a blonde girl, so I started out with my base tone, which is sienna, and then I only added a darker burnt sienna on the left side of the hair. But on the right end of the hair, it's all lighter tones. I worked with the darker um, shade of yellow. I think it's sunflower yellow that I use as a shadow part or a darker part of the hair. For the leaves, this one is a study of the leaves, so I tried to make it on. I tried to put on the different values so I could play around with how it works when it comes to the light source, but it follows the same rule. What's on top has no cast of shadow. On the bottom part is where there's a shadow casting. Now for this little hummingbird, as you could see, what I like about it is it has a very detailed small feather that almost looked like a skeleton. It's really fun study. I really enjoyed the whole process of creating this hummingbird, and each particular feather, or that half moon shaped feather, actually has a very specific detail, which I really had tons of, you know, of fun working with it. Now, when you work with, let's say, a smaller details, just like with this hummingbird feather, it would be best to use a darker, or well, let's say, not darker, but the most smallest, finer brush that you have. In this particular study, my husband is using my smallest brush, so I have no choice but to work with the second smallest brush, which I think it would be more detailed and less messy if I was using my 000 brush. I really love my 000 brush. It comes in handy in giving those details, especially with the eyelashes. This woman's eyelashes is a little bit thicker than usual because I'm not using my finer detail brush. So going back to, let's say, the leaves study, what I was aiming for is to see the different veins in the leaf, because each leaf has its own vein pattern that is really unique from one another. If you look closely into a certain leaf, you would see that the lines that looks like veins is not really identical, and they're not just straight lines that goes all the way through the middle and all the way to the edges. They're actually like veins that connects each other. And when it comes to the shadows, what I'm trying to say, whatever is on the darker side, that's where you have to put the shadow part. So the one on the upper side is the one that does not have any shadow. So this is the hummingbird. So I really hope that you guys enjoy it, and that I was able to help a little when it comes to light and shadows. And let me know what else you want to know, and I'll try to make it for you.